You're watching The Language of Business with Greg Stoller.
What do building a brand, effectively leading your direct reports, and doing business in a different language have in common? Brenda Bence knows. She has boosted people's leadership and communication skills on 6 continents, and she does it from the inside out. It all begins with personal awareness. Brenda is joining us from Singapore, and welcome to The Language of Business.
Well, thank you, Greg. It's great to be here.
Brenda, you have spoken extensively and published even more about all aspects of what you do, but in particular about a leadership personal branding system. What is that?
Well, actually, to start about talking about the system, it's good to talk about what leadership personal branding is at the beginning. So listen, you have a leadership personal brand. It's the way you want people to perceive, think, and feel about you as a leader. So you're already branded because the people are doing the perceiving and the thinking and the feeling. So I developed a system to help people take charge of their brands and really manage that step by step. And essentially, Greg, there's like 3 core fundamental steps to it. The first one, you want to define your brand. The second one, you want to communicate it consistently. And then thirdly, you want to avoid damaging that brand you've worked so hard to create. So that really is the leadership personal branding system that we're talking about.
Everybody talks about brand building for companies, but you're talking about it for individuals. How does the process differ?
Well, actually, there's many analogies between corporate brand building and individual brand building. Ultimately, for both, it comes down to the experience that a brand offers. I'll give you an example. Starbucks, right? We pay 4 times what the normal cup of coffee would be down at the Dunkin' Donuts or whatever, right? 4 times as much. Why do we do that? Well, it's because of the experience that the brand offers. And it's the same with us. What is the experience of working with and for you? And that's the key question I like to ask when it comes to brand building.
It appears you've taken this one step further. Your latest book, Would You Want to Work for You, talks about personal leadership, branding, etc. Let's start with the obvious question, Brenda. Would you want to work for yourself?
Well, actually, Greg, some days yes, and some days no. I'm sure that we all have those days. But no, all kidding aside, it really is a powerful question to ask. Would you want to work for you? You know, what is the experience of working with and for you? And what would it be like to have you as a boss? What's the best part of working for you, and what's the worst part? And keeping those questions in mind is what really changes your brand as a leader from an idea into truly actionable steps that you can take to change your behavior and improve the experience of having you as a leader.
I'm all, Brenda, for writing stuff down and having people sort of do self-help, etc. But this stuff is complex. How do you take personal branding, leadership, and communication and actually put it in writing?
Well, actually, I think sometimes we're a bit too complicated when it comes to certain HR processes. I'll give you an example. A lot of senior executives I've worked with, they go through these 360-degree feedback processes, which takes weeks and gets many, many people involved. And honestly, it's written form, and you honestly don't get usually very straightforward answers. So I've simplified a system. I call it the 5 words exercise. You simply sit down and ask yourself, what 5 words would you use to describe yourself? What 5 words would you like to describe yourself? And then you go out and ask other people, what 5 words would you use to describe me? So things like that, just keeping it really, really simple.
Brenda, with your being based in Singapore, my guess is that you do a lot of work in the Asia Pacific region. How do your concepts differ across cultures?
Well, I think it's an important question. Context is key to success in coaching. There's no doubt about that. And I have had an incredible fortune of coaching 60 different nationalities, 15 of which are from Asia. Now in Asia, and you know this, Greg, I know you have a lot of experience in Asia as well, it's a very hierarchical society. So sometimes people will look to authority figures to tell them what to do. And as a coach, of course, I try not to do that. The answers are all within. But occasionally, leaders might want me to pull from my own experience and share some suggestions. And so that is one of the differences, for example, coaching within the different cultures.
Brenda, some executives are inherently more street smart than book smart. How do you factor that into your equation when it comes to helping them improve over time?
Well, a lot of people will say, I want to improve. And we're all works in progress, aren't we, Greg? I mean, we usually rely mainly on our experiences or watching others to learn. That's how a lot of people learn about leadership. And a lot of people will say to me, "Oh, but Brenda, it's not my fault that I'm not being a good leader. I never had a great leader, or I didn't have a great communicator as a boss." And I always challenge that. I say, you know what? Be the leader you wish you had, because we all inherently know what makes a great leader. We could sit right down right now and make a long list of what it takes to be a great leader. So you really have to first be motivated to want to be a great communicator and a great leader. Once you do that, and once you're really clear about what that means, well, then you see the benefits of it. And that's when you kick in and the people leadership piece comes in, and where communication is so key.
But what happens if that person's leadership agility is in direct conflict with the corporate culture of the firm they work for?
You have to understand what's valued within the organization. I'll give you an example. I was working with a private wealth client, a coaching client, and she was moving from a German bank, which is very direct and to the point in the culture, to a Swiss bank, which was much more congenial, much more polite. And frankly, she had to learn how to adapt her style. She was experiencing considerable frustration with that. Basically, we came to three options, right? You can cope, you can conquer, or you can quit. And you really have to decide whether your particular style is going to work in a particular organization. You either adapt or the organization you change.
So if coping, managing, quitting, etc. are amongst the only options, in your opinion, what is the single biggest communication problem plaguing companies today?
I would say, Greg, it's not listening. In today's multimedia world, we've got iPads and computers and phones, and we've got so much stimulus just coming at us in rapid fire succession that it's easy to hear, but really not listen. There is a big difference. Listening is paying attention with the ear, and it's fundamental as a leader to do that. But, often we don't. And so I encourage my executive clients to just draw a circle, create a circle, and inside that circle, divide it into two pieces. What percentage of the time are you currently talking? And what percentage of the time do you currently listen? And then ask yourself, is that the right ratio for where I am in my career? Should I be listening more, or should I be talking more?
Brenda, thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Greg.
Brenda Bence, international branding expert and executive coach. What's it like really doing business in a foreign language, and I mean all the time?
Greg Stoller talks with an accent modification expert next on The Language of Business.